Hello and welcome to another Bodgit and Leggit video. Now we've got a 2006 Opel Astra 1.8 behind us. This is a convertible, but that doesn't matter. Opel slash Vauxhall, they're all the same, just depending where you live, called different things. And surprise, surprise, we have an overheating issue. I know that might surprise some of you people out there, but yes, Opel, Vauxhall, overheating? Nah. So what we've got to do is we've got to figure out exactly what is wrong, and then we'll just go from there essentially. So I haven't touched it yet. All I've done is reverse it in. All I know is the customer has told me they're literally filling it up every day. It's losing a lot of water. It's driving perfectly. They haven't had an issue. They said it hasn't overheated. It's just losing water. So that's all I know. So the drivability is fine. It's just losing water. So let's get a bit closer in. Let's get this started and let's see what we can do. Right, just have a quick visual look first, and I cannot see anything wrong. I can move the fan by hand. Sometimes the fans can seize, but the fan moves. That doesn't mean the fan is working, but it's moving. All the pipes are good. There's no sign of any water leak. So is it head gasket? That doesn't look head gaskety, but again, that doesn't mean anything. Oh, that's not great. Cap isn't working. Well, that's not good, because this is a pressurized system, and the cap, is it the wrong cap? The cap isn't working properly. Is that it? No, it's stuck. Has someone put the wrong O-ring on it or something? Anyway, we'll have to look at that. And the problem is, I need this pressurising without the cap working properly. The other thing is they've just put water in it because obviously they don't want to waste antifreeze, which is fair enough. But the problem is these do go over 100 degrees when they're heating up, and water just will boil at that point. So that is a problem because I can't test the system properly. And I can't test the system properly if the cap is a bit dodgy. It seems to be kind of on and okay now, but keep an eye on that. So we're going to have to check the system. I'm going to put the sniffer test on. I'm going to do everything, but the problem is with that just being water on, or water in it, I'm not going to be able to test it properly because it will just boil before, you know, the thermostat opens and all that stuff. Do we have a thermostat issue? Do we have a water temperature switch issue? Do we have a radiator issue, a fan issue, a head gasket issue? There's loads of things we could have. The inner radiator, the inner matrix could be leaking. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this up and we're going to see, try and get to temperature, or some sort of temperature, some sort of pressure, and see what's going on. But we need this cap to be working because we need the system to build up pressure in case there's any, you know, weak points that opens up as it gets hot. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this heat up, and then we're going to see if we can see anything. No point showing that on camera. As soon as it's kind of heated up, we'll go from there. I see you! Just washing the engine. Automatic engine wash in this Astra. A new feature, I think. As you're driving along, it washes everything. Electrics, you name it. It washes it. Sorted. Right, as you can see from that, we have a leak in the rad, but now we've got to figure out kind of why do we have a leak in the rag. Is there anything else that's kind of causing this to happen? For example, is the fan working? Is the radiator switch that turns on the fan working? Is the thermostat working? You could just put a rad in this now, you found a leak, and you can go down the road and in 2 days later the rad blows again because there's another issue. So we have to figure out, is there another issue and what it is? Or was it just rust and just kind of normal wear and tear, or a stone or something that killed the rad? Now, we have a wiring diagram here. Just quickly see that. We have two options, one with a twin fan and one with a single fan. We've got a single fan, and as you can see, we've got two relays controlling the high and the low side, and we have a fuse. So what I'm going to do is K13, K12 are the relays, and BEF6 is the fuse, which is a 40 amp fuse, or 142 is the location there. So I'm going to check them to see if they're working, see if we've got control, to see if we've got everything. Then if that's okay, we can then switch on the fan and actually see if the fan's working. We can do the high and the low side. And if that's all working, we're going to then go to the thermostat. But to be honest, if I'm putting a radiator in this car, I'm going to be replacing the thermostat and the radiator switch anyway, regardless, just because when the radiator is gone, the thermostat, if it's not gone, is not far behind. So you replace them both together no matter what. So that's it. We can also check the integrity of the wire through the actual radiator switch. We can essentially, you know, short it out, and that should turn on the fans. If that turns on the fans, then we know that the wiring is okay, and it really is as simple as that. Sorted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all this set up, and then we're going to see, I might even scope the motor to see if it's, you know, what sort of conditioning the motor's in. Even though it's working, if it is working, it could be kind of on its way out, and we can actually tell from the waveform if it's on its way out or not. So I might do that just kind of for the sake of the video. So there we go. Let's get that sorted. Get this all ready for a few tests, and we'll go from there. All right, here we go. Here's our fuse box. This is our relay, and this is our fuse. Now our fuse, from just looking at it, looks fine, so that's okay. I'm going to quickly test the relay. There's loads and loads of ways of testing relays. You don't need anything fancy. This machine here is actually really quite cheap. You can buy these online and they're not expensive. So we just plug that in, turn it to a 5-pin, press the button. It will kind of go through open and close it, open and close it, and it'll tell you at the end if it's good or bad. And there we go. So we know that's good. The other good thing is they're genuine ones. They don't look to be messed with, which is always handy. Let's just quickly check this one as well. This is a 4-pin. Now, so we know them relays are okay. Next thing I want to do is actually test, see if we can bypass the relay to see if we can actually make the fans work. So I'm going to take out this relay. I'm going to put the relay onto the relay tester here. Plug this in. What this allows me to do, it just has the pins out, so it means I can have the relay in and I can do a few tests to make sure we've got power grounds and all that type of stuff, and we can actually cross the relay here to see if we can switch on the fans. That will prove, it won't prove the control side yet, but it will prove that from here back to the fan is okay, and we'll do the control side later. So, test light, battery positive or battery negative. Look at our wiring diagram. See the fuse coming in, fuse coming on pin 86. Now, it is fairly obvious, you know, if you're doing anything with cars, you should at least know how a relay works. You know, they are very, very simple. And there we go. So we know the test light is lighting up. Just see that there. So we know, just from that, we know the fuse has to be okay, because that's the power from the fuse. So even though we can see the fuse, but we know that the fuse is okay. If you do that and it doesn't light up, then you've mostly got a fuse issue, or you've got a wire between here to the fuse, something along them lines. Now what have we got? Now if we go to pin 85, we should actually be able to make this work. There we go. And you can hear the relay clicking as well. So that's good. You can actually feel the relay clicking. There is another way of testing a relay. You can use one of these gadgets if it's on. Now if it's clicking like that, you can obviously tell, but if it's not, now you can see it actually lights up once it gets the magnetic field. You can see that. Hopefully that's coming through on camera. So if you've got some relays in your relay box and you know they're switched on, but you don't know they are because you know they're switched on, you can just go around with this. When it lights up, you know the relay is working. That's another way of testing them. Also another way of testing them is using this. I'm actually, now I keep getting interrupted. I can't remember where I was. Yeah, you can actually test it through this here, because I know if I'm actually clicking that, I know the relay is working. So, you know, you can kind of test it through that as well. Now, what I want to quickly do is just do the other test. Just making sure that the other one is working. As you can see, they both share the same fuse. So pin 30 obviously lights up because they both share the same fuse. So that's good to know. That's good to know that obviously this is going to get powered. We'll also energize this as well. We're going to energize this as well. The fan should kick on. We're going to go to pin 86 on this one, but it should be a more powerful fan. And there we go. That's just blowing all the water and crap away. So again, we know both relays are working, the high and low side from the relay box down to the fan, and we now know the fan is working. Now, we still don't know if the fan is any good in the sense of, you know, how old it is, but we can check that through the scope. But it hasn't blown the fuse, so I don't expect it to be kind of bad. So now what we need to do is we need to do the control side to see if the actual car will command the fan on once it reaches a certain temperature. A couple of ways of doing that. I should be able to, on some cars you can just literally disconnect the temperature sensor once the ignition's on, and the fan will kick in because it's like a fail safe in case the sensor completely goes, so your fan stays on, which is better than it not coming on. So we can try that. If not, we can just do a slightly different way. I can even get down to this, which no, I can't. I can't get down to that. So let me try and get down to that and pull that off and see what happens. Right, I've just changed everything over. Always a good idea to always check your test light because mine's just broke. It can be repaired, but lucky I checked it because otherwise I'd be thinking what the hell's going on. Diagnostic Dan. I'm just doing a video. You on video? Say hello. Yeah, say hello. I'll put you close to the microphone. Hold on. Hello.
Hi everybody, how you doing?
Right, hopefully they'll hear that. I'll just pause the camera now. Right, I keep getting interrupted. What should happen is I've disconnected the sensor here and it should go to a -40 and kick on the fans automatically, but it's not. So we've got no control side at all. Now there might be another temperature sensor on the radio. I can't quite see yet, but I'm going to put it on the lift and I'm going to actually test that. Right, so like I said, I'm going to pull this. Once I pull it, the fan should kick in. The fan hasn't kicked in. What I'm going to do, I'm going to turn on the my scan tool because this should do our control side for us. When I unplug it, it should automatically go down to -40 or in around there. Fan should kick on as a safety precaution. So I'm going to plug my scan tool in. We're going to see what the temperature sensor or the rad switch is actually reading, and then we'll go from there. Right, hopefully you can see that. Camera focus. Engine coolant temperature 24 degrees, and that sensor is unplugged. So there is something going on there. Oh, people, you know, just have one of them days. Yeah, I'm just having one of them days. This is not the sensor I was looking for. This is for the thermostat. Now, people, here is my little shit of a sensor at the back. Oh, not going to be able to see it. This should now kick on the fan. Hey! Right, so we now know we've got control. So this now tells us, let's actually see what that says on the scan tool now. Focus, there we go, boom, -40, sorted, focus. Now, what do we know from this? We now know that the power from the two relays down to the fan is working. That's good. We also now know we've got control, because once I took that off, it was a default value at -40. So we now know the computer can see that, and if the computer realizes, it goes bang right and it switches everything on. So we now know that our system is actually working fine, which is good. I am going to check the actual motor just to make sure, even though I know it's going to be most probably fine, but you know, we'll do that just for shits and giggles and get a nice sexy waveform going on. If we do end up replacing the radiator, I am going to be putting a new thermostat and a new sensor on, just because honestly you might as well, because there's a good chance it's most probably the thermostat that's failed, but again we can check that, but it's most probably the thermostat that's failed and done something or whatever, you know. The other thing is, I really want to check the head gasket, but I just don't like the way I can't get pressure, and I guarantee I'm not going to be able to get enough heat into the car, but we're going to try that. But I'm now happy enough that we've got control at least. So if I put this onto, I'm going to put this onto pin 87A. We're just going to completely 100% convert. Oh, my hand's in the way. Can you see that? No. Now, you see the test light? When I take this off, this test light should go out. Come on. Sensor's now off. Test light goes out. There we go. So we know we are 100% fine. That's good. I'm happy enough with that. So the next thing to do is I just want to check the head gasket. So I'm going to heat this baby up, and we're going to see if we've got a head gasket problem before I call anything, because there's no point me putting a radiator in and doing all that and then turn out the head gasket is gone. But the only problem is I don't know if I'm going to be able to test the head gasket. There's no signs of a head gasket, even when I drove it in and when I was letting it heat up to get the radiator leaking. It wasn't pumping out white smoke or anything like that. But I still want to check it, just because I'll then know 100%. Right. The reason why I don't think I'm going to be able to test it is because this has to go over 100 degrees for that thermostat to open. It's in and around there. And with just normal water in it, the water's going to be boiling before I can pressurize the system properly to test it. So what we might find is when I put the sniffer test on there, it could all just start bubbling up and I'm not going to be able to test it properly. So then I'm going to have to tell the customer, you know, the fan is gone, but you might still have a head gasket problem. But let this heat up and we'll find out shortly. Good thing, we can actually test the operation of the thermostat through here. I can watch this. If it goes up to, I can't remember exactly, I think it's around 100, 103 degrees, then it drops. The fan should then kick in, and that means everything is fine. But because we've got a leaky fan, I don't know if we're going to be able to build up enough pressure for that to actually operate properly. We can also turn the heat on internally inside to see if there's actually heat. So we can kind of check that from there. But like I said, I just don't think we're going to be able to build up enough pressure, unfortunately, for this to actually do my head gasket test. As I expected, just bubbling the water, leaking out too much there. I can't get it into enough pressure where I can safely open this to test the head gasket. It's just not going to happen. So we'll have to tell that to the customer, but at the minute it definitely needs a radiator, new thermostat housing and sensor, and we'll go from there. The last thing I want to do is just back probe the fan, just so we can get a waveform, just so we can see what sort of condition the fan is in. And yeah, because you know, if we're going to replace the radiator and the fan is, you know, getting there, well, we might as well replace the fan at the same time as well. No point letting the fan, you know, go in a couple of weeks, couple of months, and then you're back to the same situation again. So yeah, I'm just hoping they haven't driven it too much to actually do damage to the head gasket, but we're not going to be able to tell that, unfortunately. There's no signs of the head gasket's gone. You know, the pipes don't get any pressure, but like I said, the radiator's releasing all the pressure. It's not smoking heavily, there's no sign of water in the oil, so there's no obvious signs of head gasket problems, but that doesn't mean that there isn't. Right, here's my setup. I've taken out the fuse for the fan, and I've got my low amp probe set up on a 60 amp setting. We have a switch here which I can switch the fans on and off because I'm controlling it from the relays, and I get this with the kit. And now I'm going to be asked what kit I've got. This is the one I'm using. It has everything in. It's a fantastic kit. There is the numbers for everyone playing along at home if you want to get one. So that's what kit I'm using for this car, because I know if I didn't say I'm going to be asked. So what I'm going to do is we've got the everything set up. Now I'm really not expecting anything wrong because we don't have a pop fuse or anything. I just want to do it just to kind of see what sort of condition it's in. And there we go, on a 1 second time base. Let me just record that. Right, let's just zoom in. This is the problem with the snap-on. You just can't zoom into it loads. This is where you really need a Pico. But, hint, hint, Pico. Right, as you can see, we're drawing around 25 amps, and it's a 40 amp fuse, so I'm not worried about the amps it's drawing. There's no particular dropouts or anything like that. You know, it's used, yeah, you can see it's used, but it's not really gonna cause any problems. So at least it's just a good test, because I don't want to do all this work and then have the customer come back because, you know, there's another problem. It's just a quick, easy test to do. So what do we know? We know the radiator is leaking. We know our circuit is okay. We know our control is okay, because when we take off the sensor, the computer knows that and it switches on the fan. So we know we're okay as regards that. But our radiator is leaking. Our fan is good, but we're not sure about the head gasket, and I cannot, unfortunately, test it properly without putting a radiator in it. So, what I like to do when I put a radiator in, and this is just what I personally like to do, is I like to put the radiator in, we'll put a new thermostat in, we'll do everything, we'll flush it out first. So, put radiator flush in, flush all the crap out, and then kind of start afresh, because if there's any bits of crap or anything in there, you don't want it going into the new radiator for obvious reasons. That kind of makes sense. So we can put some flush through there and get everything kind of working, but we can't do it when the radiator is leaking because it just will not go through the engine properly. And then we're going to have to, you know, put antifreeze in it and do all that. But I'm going to have to tell the customer, you know, potentially you might have a head gasket problem, but we can't really see until we fix it. So I don't know if they're going to fix it. If there is, there'll be a part 2 to this video. If not, at least we've diagnosed exactly what's wrong, just kind of wear and tear in the radiator. Everything else is working, which we've proved. As you know in my videos, I like to be thorough and kind of go through everything, just so when the customer gets it back, or if I tell the customer what is wrong, you know, they're not going to come back and it's going to be hassle. So I said I'd leave this running a little bit longer because I just didn't like the fact that I couldn't test the head gasket. I'm concerned because these have head gasket problems. They kept driving it and, you know, couldn't really test it. So come with me and I'll show you what I found. No, come on. For fuck's sake, come on. I'll fucking bring you then. Jesus. Alright, so let's just show you the floor first. Don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's go up the car, come down here, come down, and bingo! Woohoo! Look at that! Head gasket gone as well. Now, there we go. It's pouring water out. So, I'd say, you know, which went first? Hard to say, but I'd mostly say the head gasket went first, and then put in pressure, and then just decided to blow the radiator just for good measure. But there we go, people. Head gasket gone. I don't know if they're going to be doing anything with this car. There we go. It's leaving a nice surprise for me. So there we go, people. There'd be nothing worse than me putting a radiator, thermostat housing, doing all that, and then ringing the customer and saying, look, your head gasket's gone. So I always like to do everything I can. But to be fair to the car, there was actually no sign of it, like no normal signs. So, you know, there you go. I couldn't test it with the sniffer test because, you know, it just kept bubbling up. But anyway, there we go. So, head gasket, radiator, thermostat housing and sensor, all gone. So it's a complete dog's dinner, this one. It's all jaspered up. We'll have to wait and see if they're going to repair it, but at least we've diagnosed it, and we've diagnosed it right. We know exactly what's wrong, exactly what to replace if they're going to replace it. But remember, if you're doing head gaskets, you might as well do timing belts and stuff like that. It gets very expensive very quickly. If the head is warped, most probably is. It is an Opel at the end of the day. You know, the price just goes up and up and up. Is it worth doing? No. So we'll have to wait and see. So look, hope it helps. Thumbs up, subscribe, all the usual. Don't forget, links up here, links down below. But most importantly, don't forget, get your hands dirty. See you for the next one. Sorted.